Just a quick little background about myself. 10 years ago, I founded a coffee business called Aquaspresso. And when I founded this business, I knew absolutely nothing about coffee, actually, nothing about marketing and nothing about sales. So my choices were really to go out to agencies and try and them run marketing on our behalf. And I did this for a number of years, and they presented us with really fantastic, beautiful looking reports showing a whole bunch of interesting metrics, click-through rates, frequency, impressions, clicks, conversions, and so on. At that point, I knew pretty much nothing what any of these things meant. And although I was very data-oriented at the time, I really only cared about one piece of data point, and that was sales. And I just wasn't getting any sales. So at that point, I made a decision that over the next 10 years, I'm going to embark on a journey to live sales and marketing every day in my own business to see, can we grow this business through digital marketing? And the next 10 years pretty much involved me living it every day. And about 3 years ago, we started a business called Syte, which essentially uses pretty much everything we did in our own business on a day-to-day basis and trying to help other businesses with all the tactics and tools that we learned ourselves. So through working with lots of different companies and lots of different verticals, we learned that people encountered two primary problems. And those problems are really, number one is their customers either didn't know that their product or service existed. And in the second case, which is kind of similar to what happened with my business, that a lot of people were searching for our business, searching for coffee machines. We had a fortune of people looking for coffee machines, and anyone who was searching for coffee machines pretty much found us. But the problem is you get to a point where you can't scale. You can't force more people to click for coffee machines. You can't force people to search what you want them to search if that search intent doesn't exist at that point. And that's what led us to LinkedIn, and that's what led us to using LinkedIn to help lots of other companies out there to try and overcome these problems. So hopefully today I'm going to be able to show you a few tactics in LinkedIn which will really get to the heart of those problems and help you yourself achieve that in your business. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of LinkedIn and all the details, I think it's important when we start any marketing campaign to understand almost the dynamics of a transaction in business. What makes a customer purchase from you as opposed to your competitor? So Shoshi has a little poll she's going to present to everyone. If you want to just kind of tick, why do you think customers choose you rather than your competitors? I'll just give you a couple of seconds to kind of make a pick. It might be a number of these options, but choose the one which you feel is most pertinent or most relevant to why your business is selected over your competitors. We'll just wait a couple seconds for the results. All right, so it's always really interesting to see people's feedback. Almost everyone, every time chooses we have the best service, almost always followed by the best product or something related to the quality of product. Now, it's one of the saddest things, but it's one of the biggest myths in small business that build it and they will come. If you have a great product, if you have a great quality product, or if you have a great service, then customers will line up at the door. The harsh reality and the sobering reality is that unfortunately isn't the case. Customers don't buy from companies who have the best product. Companies buy from other companies who actually have the best marketing and sales. So hopefully I'm going to show you a few tactics in LinkedIn which we can kind of get to our customers before our competitors. And just an interesting note, when you choose that you think your customers buy from you because you have the best product or service, think about how many of your competitors make those exact same claims. When a customer embarks on a journey and decides which vendor to select, they have no way of knowing if your quality is actually better than your competitor's quality because they're saying exactly the same thing. So at the end of the day, it comes down to, can you market and sell better than your competitors? So we're going to go through a few things in LinkedIn. And one thing I think which is really powerful to LinkedIn, I'm going to show you 5 reasons why I think pretty much every business that sells to another business, a B2B business, should be using LinkedIn. So firstly, outbound versus inbound. So we've spoken about the difference of how customers come to you. Now, you have some products where there's naturally a lot of search around it and customers naturally will seek you out. But you have a portion of products where that's not enough and you have to go meet your ideal customer. So again, another poll, if you just don't mind filling it out and just choosing what you think is most pertinent to you. Now, the reason why I love outbound, now LinkedIn is inherently an outbound platform, is you can scale obviously through an outbound platform. You can't force more people to search you, like I've mentioned. You can't force more people to actually look for your product. The other reason I love outbound and love LinkedIn for that, for this approach, is that if you're a high-end seller of the most expensive cinemas out there, you can't tell people that can't afford your product not to search for you. You can't force the right people to search for you. Now, when you're undergoing an outbound approach, whether through sales reps that are cold calling, whether through a digital outbound approach like LinkedIn, you can identify exactly the type of customer that you want to reach, and you can create your marketing campaign around it. So when you run an outbound campaign, be it a LinkedIn digital outbound campaign, you can perfectly segment who you want to reach. And if you run that campaign successfully and you're able to reach that customer, the only leads you will be getting is from your ideal customer. So in terms of lead quality, outbound and LinkedIn go hand in hand and really lend itself to really finding the perfect lead and the perfect customer every time. The next part I love about LinkedIn is it's made for B2B. So for those of you that don't know, B2B is really when you're a business selling to another business. Now, the easiest way to use LinkedIn, the most common way to use LinkedIn is to use LinkedIn's current data points and current data sets. So whenever anyone registers on LinkedIn themselves, they automatically put what their title is, what their company is, what their company size is. They put all this detail in, which is crucial for us advertisers to now try and find them afterwards. There's close to 50 different audience targeting methods one can use on LinkedIn, but just to highlight a few of the most popular ones. You can target after company size. So if you deal only with enterprise or if you deal only with solopreneurs, you can segment that list and go after that. The most popular way of segmenting a list on LinkedIn and choosing who to target is really by job title. So if you sell to a human resources manager or a CEO or an MD, you can target that I only want to reach MDs, and your ads and your targeting will only go to that particular person. And then lastly, again, one of the many more, but one of the other interesting ones, if you target a particular industry, if, for example, you sell into mining industry or manufacturing, you can target a specific person in that industry. So you can use all of these in a union almost. So you can target, I want to reach the MD of a company that has the size of a minimum of 50 people that works in the mining industry. The next thing I love about LinkedIn is linearly scalable. Now, a lot of people, when we speak to, embarking on a LinkedIn journey, are afraid of the costs. They say LinkedIn, they heard, is really expensive. Now, LinkedIn, like most digital mediums, can allow you to kind of dip your toes in. There's no reason you need to spend 10,000 Rand, 20,000 Rand on a LinkedIn campaign before you've tested it works. Every marketing and every marketing approach is at the beginning a hope, and there's a lot of uncertainty around it to see if it will work. Now, your minimum requirement to play in the LinkedIn field and to run LinkedIn ads is 80 Rand a day, only 80 Rand a day. Now, the right approach on LinkedIn is always to start with that minimum amount. Start with 80 Rand a day. Only when you see it working, then you can scale it. And the beauty of LinkedIn is that if you do see it working, so you start with 80 Rand a day, so there is always an inherent risk because it might not work. You might start with your 80 Rand a day and it might not work, but if you do get it to work, then you can scale it through the roof. So you start with 80 Rand a day, you see, great, I can get 1 lead a day from that amount. And at that point, you can start scaling if the numbers keep making sense. The fourth thing I like about LinkedIn and the approach of LinkedIn is the combination, how you can use LinkedIn with sales and sales reps in an organization. Now, if you've ever hired sales reps yourself, you'll know they're not easy to find good sales reps. And there's probably no business owner out there who has said, geez, sales reps are always so easy to find. It probably it seems like it doesn't exist. And I think that's largely due to what people's expectation of sales reps, and it's particularly in South Africa, are. People expect sales reps to be everything from marketing to prospectors to sales. And I think with that expectation, people are always left unsatisfied or unhappy because there's almost no sales reps around who are strong on the prospecting side. A good sales rep will be able to close a customer, given an appointment or a lead. But most sales reps struggle with that very first part of actually finding customers, because that's not typically sales' real job. Sales' job should be closing, and marketing's job should be providing those sales reps with people to close. So the purpose of LinkedIn here in this process, when you combine it with sales reps, is to create a sustainable funnel of leads so that your sales reps don't have to call 100 people a day to get one person to say, yes, I might be interested. Rather, let the magic of LinkedIn and scale go through approaching 100 people digitally. And when those people reach out, only those 1 or 2 people give those to the sales rep and let them then handle them at that stage. It saves them time throughout the day. It's a more effective way, and it results in a company, an ecosystem, which scales with your marketing, scales with your demand. So instead of having 3 sales reps hoping that they'll find people to close, rather scale at a time, scale your sales reps as your marketing scales. When you have enough leads to provide with another sales rep, that's the point when you get a separate sales rep. And the last part I like about LinkedIn is really the cost and quality. So at the end of the day, when you're measuring any marketing platform, the only true metric to measure if a marketing platform works for your business or not is at what cost can I get customers? It doesn't matter what the cost of a click is. It doesn't matter what the cost of impression is. It doesn't even matter what the cost of a lead is. The matter is at the end of the day is that how much is it actually costing you to acquire a customer? Now, we spoke about on LinkedIn that you can define your audience to whom you show the ads before you actually start your campaign. For that reason, you typically find that your lead quality in LinkedIn is always higher than other platforms because you can guarantee who's going to see your ads. Separate to that is that lead cost is actually not very different to other platforms as well. The only thing which is incredibly expensive when compared to other platforms is the actual cost of a click. But that's really high up in the funnel. That doesn't actually matter to the end process as long as you're getting customers at the price that you're looking for. So I think the beauty in LinkedIn is because a lot of advertisers and a lot of companies in South Africa are put off by what they perceive as the expensive cost of LinkedIn, it's a great opportunity because how all these platforms work is you're bidding against your competitors. You're bidding against other companies who are trying to market to the same audience. It just so happens that in South Africa, there's a lot of inherent fear around the cost of LinkedIn, which means it's not flooded with advertising in South Africa. It's almost the heyday of LinkedIn because of that. Facebook went through the exact same process probably 5 or 6 years ago. But LinkedIn really now is not crowded because people perceive it to be expensive. But across almost all campaigns that we see, the actual customer cost, the end customer cost, is really similar, if not better than other marketing methods or marketing mediums. All right, so we kind of spoke about, here's just a summary of the 5 reasons why I think LinkedIn is useful for any B2B business. I'm going to get into what we're talking about. What are LinkedIn ads? How can you use them in your business? So it's important to remember that we're speaking here about LinkedIn ads and not LinkedIn personal connections, one-to-one invites. There's 2 sides of LinkedIn. There's the LinkedIn that pretty much most people I think are familiar with just by being on, where you add your profile, you can connect with people, you can then message them and so on. But the second part of this is what we're really talking about here today is the LinkedIn ad platform. Doing this at scale, marketing your company rather than marketing yourself, and particularly marketing an offer to the right audience that you segment. So it doesn't matter who's your connection. It doesn't matter how many people in your network. We're using LinkedIn's data and we're using LinkedIn's audience sets to market to. So you can start with none. Even if you're new on LinkedIn, or even if you've never been on LinkedIn before, makes no difference. We're going to market a company page here using these huge audiences that exist within LinkedIn itself, rather on one's behalf. So here's, if anyone that's used LinkedIn will be familiar with these screenshots. I'm going to just point out where ads are shown, what do they look like, and so on. So start on the little screenshot on the right. Traditionally, ads were shown in the very right column of LinkedIn, separate to the native feed. And these didn't have great click-through rate because they were marked almost in like a bad section of being ads. And more LinkedIn tried to get more people to engage with ads, and then ads now look more and more like the central one, which sits in your middle feed. So within your central feed, there's 2 things that appear. One is your post and that your connections post on their behalf, and the second thing, advertisers. What are they putting out there? What offers are there? So this is the most effective place traditionally now for LinkedIn ads in your native feed. The other section where LinkedIn ads exist are really through emails. So if anyone's been on LinkedIn, anyone's really experienced emails, usually they're very frustrating and annoying because most of them are not really done very well. But you can run LinkedIn ads as an email type ad as well. So you can segment your same audience in the perfect way, and you can then essentially send them an email within LinkedIn, which is called an email, and actually make an offer to them there. There's now further developments like chat emails and chat ads, which get a lot of good engagement. Both work fairly similarly in terms of results, native LinkedIn ads and emails. So it's probably worth trying both just to see how your audience engages and reacts. Second part of LinkedIn is, so after you've created your ad and after you've done your placements, where's it going to appear? The real magic of LinkedIn lies in the audience targeting. Who's actually going to see your ad? Now, there's two parts of how you can choose audiences. The first one I'm going to go through is really your cold LinkedIn dataset audiences. It's very simple to set up this. It's very effective, and it's probably a place that most people should start. So as I said, I've kind of touched on this previously, but there's 50 different targeting options how you can use your LinkedIn ads. You can go after job title, you can go after industry, you can go after particular companies, and you can use any union of these. Now, the interesting thing is that job titles are really chosen by the person that's, when you start your LinkedIn profile, you're going to say, I'm a managing director. The next person might say, I'm a CEO. So there's a fortune of job titles that one needs to go through to try and include everyone in your audience. The smart thing to do is don't use only one selection. Don't only use job title. Use typically a combination of a number of targeting options to create an audience which is big enough but niche enough to be relevant to what you're trying to advertise. And the second part of advertising options or targeting options is really your warm audiences. Now, what you're able to do on LinkedIn, I'll start with lists. So you can upload any list on LinkedIn, so any email list, and LinkedIn will then match those emails to LinkedIn profiles. This is useful if you have a leads list that you've generated over the years, or if you have a leads list, if you once attended a conference or something and you've got leads that way, you can then upload those leads into LinkedIn, or sorry, those emails into LinkedIn, and they'll then match their profile, and you'll be able to target that audience using that list matching. Second thing is remarketing. So remarketing, quite a basic concept, which exists across all platforms. You can take the people that have come to your website and remarket to them. So you put a little pixel on your website, which essentially links your LinkedIn campaign to your website audience. And as soon as they've visited your website, they'll form part of your audience, your remarketing audience in LinkedIn, which you can then market to in future. Just one thing to mention on remarketing, and it's very powerful to use some of these in combination with LinkedIn's data sets. So for example, if you have a website which sells to consumers and direct to businesses, you might want to segment your offer. So you want to potentially make an offer only to the businesses that come to your website. So what you can do, you can use your remarketing pixel to create a remarketing audience. You can combine that with an audience selection, which says that audience must have visited your website, number one. But secondly, that audience also must be have a job title of owner, so that any owner that visits your website will then see your ads, and then you can craft a particular message to them. Likewise, if you have if you want to only reach consumers, you can reach anyone that's not an owner, and you can do all these negative combination lists as well, which is pretty interesting and pretty useful. And the last bit is lookalikes. Lookalikes were added by LinkedIn not too long ago. And what a lookalike audience is you can submit an audience into LinkedIn, any of the above two or any other audience. So for example, you can submit a customer list. Let's assume you have 1,000 customers over the years. You can then tell LinkedIn to say, please analyze my customer list and please create a data set which is far greater but similar to this customer list. So they'll do like a little analysis in the background, and they'll give you a far bigger audience to market to, but that matches similar characteristics as existed in whichever list you provided there. That's a great starting point for pretty much all businesses. Anyone can upload a list, particularly a customer list, create a lookalike of that list, and let LinkedIn do its magic of finding people that are similar to your current customers. So what we've spoken about up to now is really I would say your basic LinkedIn targeting, which you can do. I think LinkedIn targeting, just even using the basics, is is good for most campaigns. You can get pretty far with just those. I do want to share some what we call super tactics, which I think can take it one step further in terms of really finding like the perfect audience, and some things that definitely, for sure, a lot of your competitors won't be doing. So super tactic number one. Now, number one is don't really go after owners. Don't say I only want to sell to owners when you select your person, your audience in LinkedIn. When someone chooses their profile on LinkedIn, they can call themselves whatever whatever they want. So I can call myself chief coffee maker. Even if I'm the owner of a company, I can call myself anything. And because of that, there's a fortune of crazy titles that exist on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's last count said there were a little bit over 2 million different job titles that people have called themselves. Now, in reality, there aren't actually 2 million different types of job functions in a business, but people call themselves all sorts of funny things. So when you're marketing to a managing director, or when you're marketing to a senior managing director, that's actually different people. Although they might look like the same thing or might actually be the same type of role in a company, whichever you select is whatever LinkedIn will actually market to. So if you market to a CEO, that's totally different to marketing to a managing director, even though in different companies that might be the same person. So for that reason, a hack is to try and find little niche types of job titles which are relevant to who you're trying to target, but that may not be targeted by your competitors. Because LinkedIn is an ads, or is a bidding war. So you pay depending on what your competitors are paying when they're trying to reach the same audience. So you have competitor A and you have yourself, and you're both trying to sell to managing directors. Now, because you're both selling to managing directors, you've told LinkedIn that's who you're trying to reach, you're bidding against each other in terms of how much you need to spend to bid more than your competitor. A hack around that is to say, instead of going after managing directors, let me try and go after a co-managing director, assuming that your competitors wouldn't have selected that as one of their audience that they're trying to market to. And that will allow you to typically get really cheap clicks because there's not much competition trying to go after that audience. Super tactic number two. This is called building niches. Now, the real trick to marketing, no matter what platform, no matter what medium you use, the real trick is relevance. If you can ensure your ad is relevant to who is seeing it, you typically win. That's how marketing wins. So assume you sell to a person by the name of John Smith, and John Smith's your ideal customer. If you could present John Smith with an ad which said, if your name is John Smith, we have the perfect solution to you, besides the fact that it'd be super creepy, those would work incredibly well, because from John Smith's point of view, it's like, wow, these people are made for me. These people service particularly me, and therefore specialists in servicing only me. Now, obviously we can't go to that level. We don't want to go to that level of creepiness, and we can't really go to that level of creepiness, but we can build a similar type of feeling, a similar type of relevance into our ads. So I'm showing you two ads which we did for a customer. So this is a customer which specialized in asset management. Now, they wanted to reach any professional in the space, and they would offer them financial services. This is the ad we started with, and it's quite a broad description. If you're a professional and you're seeing this, if you're an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor and you're seeing this, it's interesting, but it's not super relevant. Is there a way we can build an extra special niche into this ad to make it that much more attractive when someone saw it? So we built the next version, where we purposely built a little niche within the audience. They were happy to reach any professional, but when you're an engineer and when you're an engineer working for over 5 years and you see an ad which speaks exactly to you, then it's so much more relevant, and the click-through rates and the conversion rates are just always that much better. So this ad performed 4 times better, which means it cost us 4 times, we got 4 times as many leads for the same cost just by making them that much more relevant. So we didn't only target engineers, but we had many of these little subsets. We targeted engineers with 5 years experience in our audience. So we knew this ad would be shown to them, and we sent that to them. We did the same for doctors. We did the same for lawyers. So we essentially took the audience group of professionals, a large audience, and cut it down into little niches, which then allowed it to be that much more relevant and that much more attractive to the person seeing it on the other end. Same example here, or same type of example here. There's a company also that builds and sells temperature temperature monitoring equipment. And again, they supply many different industries. They supply many different people in those industries. We purposely went out to their target market and cut that target market into a manufacturing industry target market. And within that, we wanted to reach only operations or production managers. So we built an ad just to speak to them so that it would be that much more relevant when they saw it. And the last super tactic is probably the most creepy of all tactics, but perhaps the coolest, and it's a slightly different technique or different approach or different reason why we use this. So I'll paint the picture just to give you a context, and then we'll go into what the ad says and what it does. So you can also use LinkedIn to actually close sales, not only to generate leads. So when we ran this, we do a lot of work in the hotel space, and we met with a hotel executive, and his intention was to hire a marketing company to help them generate sales directly on their website. Now, in the hotel space, there's a big challenge because a lot of customers, I'm sure many of you have done it yourselves, book through what they call the OTAs, which is online travel agencies. That's booking.com, hotels.com, and so on. So one of his pain points was that he wanted to get people to come directly to his website rather than booking.com and hotels.com. And the other part, which was a real pain point for him, in the past, he'd worked with people who worked with lots of hotels in the same space, in the same class, and he felt that there was a little bit of IP sharing going on, and he didn't like that. So we built an ad directly, which was targeted only at him. It's not simple to do in LinkedIn. LinkedIn don't easily allow you to do this, but through enough hacks and enough tricks, you can kind of really design an ad to target one particular person. So here's the process, what we did. We went to look at his LinkedIn profile, and we found his profile was hotel executive. So automatically we added hotel executive to our audience list. We then, to target just him, we then saw how many hotel executives were in Joburg, and there were somewhere around 50. So we then said, cool, let's union that with Johannesburg. So we're only targeting hotel executives in Johannesburg. There was then one other feature on his profile which mentioned where he went to study, where he studied, and how long he studied. We then added a further union to that to say, we only want to find hotel executives who live in Joburg, who studied at X university, and who went to that university for X number of years. So our audience group became so super small, which resulted in him being the last person in it. And then we designed this ad to speak to every one of those pain points. We said, are you a hotel executive that wants to get bookings on your website rather than OTAs? That also wants to only work with with an agency who only works with one hotel per class at a time. So we literally crafted this ad to meet every one of his pain points. We then built our audience to reach only this particular person, and then we ran this ad to get him to move to the next level. It took about 2 days for him to reach out on this ad, and it's a really effective way. If you work in a business where the value of attracting or the value of acquiring customers is high enough to take the time to build these little sniper targeting ads to reach a person rather than frustrating people with ongoing phone calls and ongoing follow-ups, you can do it digitally where it's seen as a non-spammy or scammy way of getting people to react. And that is pretty much a crash course of LinkedIn in 30 or 35 minutes. I hope you all found this valuable. I hope you can use a lot of these tools in your own business, and we will open up to the Q&As right now.
So Michael, if you go through the chat, you'll see some of the questions that have come through.
Sure. Okay. All right, let's see. Guys, just feel free to post your questions. Sorry, guys, only responding now. Okay. All right, so let's go Jenny Strauss. Do you have a personal profile and a company profile? So I'm not sure if that means you need a personal profile. So in order to run LinkedIn ads, your only real requirement is to have a company page. You don't need to have a company page existing beforehand. You can start a company page tomorrow and run ads immediately off that. So yeah, that is pretty simple. You do need to have a personal profile to access LinkedIn. So, but you don't need a personal profile of which to run ads. Right, let's see if there's any other interesting questions. All right, so just there's a question around, there's quite a few questions around the sniper targeting. So the sniper targeting, someone's around the cost. Sniper targeting is actually very cheap. How LinkedIn works is typically charge you for for impressions. So for every 1,000 people you reach, there's a charge to that. So because our audience size was tiny, typically one person, the charge, I don't remember exactly, but it cost about R1 or R2 because really the audience is so small. So that's another reason really for segmenting your audience really tightly, because you can really obviously save some cost also. The more people you target or the more people you market to who aren't actually in your target market and are wasted views, the more it costs and the less effective your campaign is. So let's see other questions. So just questions, there's quite a few on recording. Yeah, there is recording. I think just by being signed up to this, you get the recording afterwards. So lookalikes, the question is, are lookalike tactic effective? Lookalikes are like a hidden gem in all social media marketing, Facebook included. It's very effective. The most effective way to use lookalike lists are to use remarketing combined with lookalike, because you can really scale that. Particularly if your audience is not so large that's coming to your website. Typically people coming to your website are your perfect customers. So that's a great audience. And also when you lookalike your customer list, that's also a very effective and powerful starting audience. Really how effective lookalike audiences are really a function of how good your initial audience that you choose to lookalike are. So question about, is LinkedIn is known to be very expensive? So not really. LinkedIn clicks are expensive. When you see, if you're used to particularly Google advertising and you see the LinkedIn advertising cost afterwards, in terms of the click cost, you kind of fall off your chair because it looks crazily expensive. But almost in all campaigns, we see customer cost the same, or if not lower than other mediums. And other than customer cost, lead cost is similar. Sometimes it's more expensive in LinkedIn than other mediums, but at the end of the day, if that lead is a better lead, it makes sense to still run it at the end of the day if your customer is still an acceptable cost. Okay, a question on like premium accounts. So there is I haven't touched too much on that. There's LinkedIn Premium, or where you can reach more people, you can see more profiles. That's almost a separate part of LinkedIn. That's when you use LinkedIn in your own capacity rather than through ads. Is it valuable? Depends, I guess, how you use it. Yeah, I've personally never really found it that valuable myself. Yeah, it's another question. Do you need a pro version for ads? No, ads are like totally separate to all the other consumer extras. So there's Sales Navigator, there's pro version. Ads are totally separate to that. Let's see if there are other questions. A few load shedding questions. Yes, there is recordings afterwards. Let's just see if there's other questions. Just put your questions. If you've written a question, if you don't mind just writing it again, it's easier then to scroll through. What do we charge? Someone says, it depends on the complexity of a campaign, really. I guess, yeah, that's, I guess, overall overview of it, or overall. What do you consider positive CTR? Oh, this is an interesting one. So all right, so I think it's important to remember that when you run when you look at the metrics of LinkedIn, one should look at them totally different to how one looks at Google's metrics. So click-through rate and click cost and all that, they mean the same thing, but the impact and the result is totally different across different platforms. So in LinkedIn, I would say a reasonable click cost is about 45 Rand. Well, that sounds incredibly expensive. You can typically get a lead for every 3 clicks you get, campaigns designed right and so on. In terms of click-through rates, so LinkedIn's opinion on this is anything over 0.5% is a good click-through rate. So 5 people out of every 1,000 people that see it. For anyone that doesn't know, a click-through rate really means for every number of people that are seeing your ad, how many people are clicking it. Now, we've seen, like, we kind of try and optimize the campaign continuously until we get to about 1.5, 2% click-through rate. Anything less than that, I think there's a lot that one can do, particularly in South Africa, to improve that. Click-through rate is probably the greatest tell of relevance. So for how many people are seeing it, how many people are clicking it. If your click-through rate is low, it means either your audience isn't well designed or well targeted, and or alternatively, your offer is not attractive. So you might be showing your product to the right audience, but if you're not giving them the right offer, for example, maybe it's too onerous. Maybe they need to sign up something which they're not ready to sign up rather than to learn more. That's another tell if your click-through rate's low. All right, some other questions. If you have an extremely niche market, how targeted is the LinkedIn ads? So LinkedIn ads, you can go super targeted, like the sniper targeting is really an audience of 1. Now, LinkedIn really lets you, again, using sniper targeting is a bit of a hack. It's not a simple way to set it up. But if you have your smallest audience, theoretically, that LinkedIn allows you to target is 380 people at a time. You can't really go less than that. So yeah, you can really target anyone, even if your audience is small. If you have 10 people in the whole country that need to see what you want to see, I think LinkedIn's a great way to find them. You can find really anyone on LinkedIn. If you really want to pinpoint a specific audience, I think LinkedIn is really perfect for that. Okay, so other questions. Could a normal article or post not also produce good results without using paid advertising? Okay, nice question. So short answer, I mean, short and long answer. Short answer, it depends. Long answer, not really. So organic posting in all social media is not great. It's never been great since about 5 years ago. The problem when you organically post is a number of issues. One is that only the audience who currently follows your page or follows yourself sees that post. Number one. Number two, they only see it when you post it. So if you post it today and you have an audience, let's say of 500 people that are connected to you, and you have only 20 people that are on today, tomorrow they might not see it. So it doesn't run continuously. And thirdly, when you post something organically, you can't build that niche into that post because you have 500 followers who you don't really know. You know who they are, but they come from all different walks of life from a business point of view. One might be a business owner, might be a director. They might not all be the perfect end customer for what you're offering. So yeah, organic posts I don't think are a great way to get customers. All right, so how do you, just some questions, how do you upload a list? So there's a section in LinkedIn called audiences where you can really see all your lists there. You can upload an email list there. You can add your like remarketing list there, and you can do all your unions there also. Question is, what is the best way to get more followers on LinkedIn? So you can run ads for the purpose of purpose to get followers. It's usually not that beneficial though. There's quite a few ways to do it, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to pay typically like to reach them at scale again afterwards. So it's kind of a roundabout way to create a little mini following audience, which usually isn't a very targeted following audience, to then market to them again. It's much easier and much more effective to market offers to them first off, rather than kind of go the long route around. Let's see if there's any other questions. Best ads, just trying to understand the question. Sorry, I don't quite understand the question. Some of the questions are not coming through fully. And yeah, any other questions? Dennis, I think we might be done with the questions.
I have a question. Is it better
Sure.
to run a campaign on your own internally or to use an agency?
An unbiased answer is, it depends. I think it's okay for people to try by themselves. I think what typically happens is people try themselves and don't come right, and then eventually use an agency. Yeah, it depends. I think like anything, I think people try and save money by not using an agency, but at the end of the day, everything's measurable, everything's trackable, and you can kind of, measure an agency fairly quickly. So I'd probably suggest using the right agency if you know of any, and then see, yeah, and then you can measure the results. I think one would get better results than doing it themselves. I think a lot of people have tried themselves. A lot of people, when I speak to them and do a training course, do try it themselves. And I think it's very important to know about it. I think it's important to know the concepts in the background as a business owner, because you can advise agencies of things that they might not know about your own business. But I think, again, if you need to do accounting work in your business, you can do it yourself, but you're probably better off hiring an accountant. There's a great question by Monique Olsen. How are you still so rock and roll? Oof, it's a tough one. Just trying. Let's see if there's any others. Thanks for the comments. Yeah, I think that is it, unless there's more questions.
Yeah, I think that's been fantastic. Michael, there's one question that just came in now. Maybe you just want to answer it. Let's make the last one.
Sure. Should a company link to a blog on their website, or post a LinkedIn article? So Daniel, just not 100% understand the question. I think it's I'm not quite 100%. I'm trying to think I understand. So like, I'll just touch on it what I think I understand from it. So a blog is important on your website for sure. I wouldn't send someone from your website really ever anywhere else. I think once on your website, I think it's a wasted part of the process. It's not a great user experience to send someone away from where they are. So even on LinkedIn, I wouldn't really send. You can send people to your website to do an action on your website from LinkedIn, and vice versa. You can send them from your website to LinkedIn. I think you're always better off keeping them on the platform that they're currently on. Okay, sorry, a few more. From Titch, what KPI should you measure on an agency who does the work for you? Okay, so this is, I think, an important one. So if someone does choose to use an agency, contact details are here, but if you choose to use an agency, it's very, very simple. When you choose a marketing company or marketing agency, the only KPI you should ever measure an agency with or on is sales. That's it. Every other thing is a distraction. Every other metric is really there to almost to cloud the thing and to help the agency. So click-through rates are so important, but for the agency. The click cost is so important, but for the agency. If your click-through rate's great and your click volume is great and your impressions are great, but you don't get customers, then it's a failed campaign. At the end of the day, I think that is the beauty of measurable digital marketing, that at the end of the day, it comes to one metric which you can measure, and you don't have to know more about marketing to know that. It's about, I spent X, did I get more than X back through customer GP and customer revenue? If the answer is no, it's not working. I think brand awareness and brand building is important, but I think it always should be a secondary measurable, rather than saying, well, we got customers, some customers, but not enough to cover the cost, and we did brand awareness, so that's cool. I think if your primary goal, which I think it always is, to get customers, is not being met, then it's not working. Okay, sorry. Okay, so there are a few more coming through. What is the best bidding strategy? So there's quite a few. I think it is a bit of a testing process. You've got to try for your own campaign and see. I actually like cost per click as the best bidding strategy on LinkedIn. There's CPM, which is really cost per 1,000 people that see it. There's now a couple new ones as well. I think it is worth trying a few. I think if you're getting clicks, that's like the best measure if your campaign's working, and therefore I'd rather pay for clicks than paying for anything else, because I think the other ones are too soft a metric to measure if they're valuable. Okay, one other question. What if the agency does enough to generate leads, but the company struggles to convert them into sales? Yeah, okay, so I think this is an interesting one, and there's two types of businesses. There's e-commerce, where it's simple because there's no salesperson or there's no sales element. It's either marketing resulted in sales or it didn't. And then there's lead generation campaigns. Lead generation campaigns are more interesting in a way and more difficult and more gray to measure, because you're right, Daniel, that you can have amazing leads, and if the customer doesn't close the leads, then it can look bad on the agency. I think it's an important thing, and it's a big agency challenge that there's a lot out the agency's hand once the leads get generated. I think, however, that, I mean, this is a challenge I think every agency goes through, that, we don't take part in the sale, and therefore, we can deliver a lead, but we can't really know 100% or make sure that lead converts. I think if leads aren't converting, whoever fault it is, whether it's the agency's fault or if it's the customer's fault or the company's fault because their sales team is not able to close the leads, I think at the end of the day, it's still not working. Although it's not the agency's fault, I think that still needs to be the KPI. I think more and more agencies have to get involved in the sales process, either through like a CRM or even sales training, because at the end of it, the success of a campaign must be reliant on the company getting customers. If they're not getting customers, regardless of whose fault it is, unfortunately, the campaign just doesn't work. Yeah. So, sorry, a few more. From Dana, do you recommend using LinkedIn's lead generation forms or another tool? Yeah. So in terms of generating leads on LinkedIn, there are a few options. You can send them to your website and then convert them there, or you can capture them directly on LinkedIn. I think it is better always to capture them on LinkedIn in terms of your closing rate, because again, every time you move them to a separate platform is another opportunity for someone to not make the action that you want. So if they see your ad on LinkedIn, they click on your ad and now they go to your website, that conversion rate is almost always lower. The only time I would recommend that is when you have a complex product. So on LinkedIn, you can convey only so much information in a lead form. You can get them to give their details, but you can only tell them so much what they're giving their details for. When you have a hard, complex product, that would be the time I recommend to send it to the website. Just a note for anyone that's in e-commerce, if anyone has an e-commerce company, LinkedIn is quite powerful when you use the right audiences to actually run what we call conversion campaigns directly to the website to get people to buy rather than leads. It's not typically used like that. It's not a traditional way LinkedIn's used, but it can be quite powerful. I think it's always worth testing if you're in an e-commerce company. And let's see.
Michael, I think let's take one more question.
Yeah. Okay. Last question, whoever wants to throw it out.
Yeah.
All right, cool. What would you define as a complex product? Yeah, so I think a complex product is, there's a few things to it. A complex product is one which is not easy to convey in a short message what the real benefit is. I think LinkedIn's particularly great at reaching people that know they have a problem, but they don't know that your solution is the solution to that problem. I think LinkedIn's great with that. I think it makes it difficult, or it's complex, when your product is difficult to explain. And it's also difficult, I think, when you're I'll say like complex product, because I think product and marketing almost go hand in hand. It's difficult when your audience is hard to reach. And again, I've said LinkedIn, you can reach pretty much anyone. That's obviously with the exception if they're not on LinkedIn. So you have some historic industries or old school industries where people are not digital savvy at all. And the consequence of that is that people don't, in some industries, particularly manufacturing, there's not always people that are the right people for you to reach that actually have LinkedIn profiles. They don't even know what LinkedIn is. So those are probably say the most complex products. The most complex campaigns are really have to do with reaching the right people at the right price when they're highly targeted by other advertisers and there's lots of competition. Last question, and then, sorry, I'll do the last question because I think it's an important one. But Daniel, what percentage of turnover should a company spend on digital marketing? So there was kind of like a little tricky question in the polls about your budget. Now, I think historically there was such a thing as a budget for marketing, and there was such a thing as a percentage of turnover which went to budget. Now that existed in the world of marketing when one couldn't measure marketing, and therefore those were really thumbsuck guesses. The right amount to spend on marketing is whatever you can, which converts into customers at a sustainable price. So how any measure marketing should be is that for every R1, you should get R2 back, or at least R1.01 back. If you're getting less than R1 back, if you're spending R1, then it's not working. But if you can find a medium, and all digital for the most part is that medium, definitely LinkedIn is, where you can find out these ratios, these dynamics. So when you spend R1, for example, you get R2 back, then you should spend as much money as possible to get 2 for 1 back. And I think that's the beauty of digital marketing as a whole, that once you find the ratios out for your particular product and for your particular customer, then you want to put as much money as possibly possible to scale that, because these do scale linearly. You can start small, find out the ratio, and then put as much money in as possible, and those ratios typically maintain themselves.
Michael, thanks so much. That was a hugely insightful presentation. It's really amazing to see how we can drive more leads and make more sales using LinkedIn, and to be able to reach customers at the beginning of their buying journey and ensure they're searching for you and finding you. I can tell you, the little punt for Michael, we at OnlineX use Michael and the Syte team to reach many of you today, and they do a fantastic job. They really are at the top of their game. So thanks so much, Michael. Before you leave, a final reminder that all sessions are being recorded and you will receive emails with links to them shortly. We look forward to helping you continue your journey of using social to drive traffic to your website and finding your dream clients. To remind you, this month it's all about how to execute the most effective digital campaigns to win customers and grow your online business. The next steps in this journey are parts 2 and 3 of OnlineX's Triple Play. That will be taking place over the next 2 weeks. For bookings for both of these, firstly, they're free and they're not to be missed. They're open now, and you can book now by clicking on the LinkedIn chat. Join us next week, Wednesday, where Rhys Downard, lead digital marketing analyst at Media Rocket, will present a session on how to use Facebook to convert your audience into customers. This will be followed the week after with a webinar by Gavin, international speaker, chief strategist and founder at Optage, on how to use SEO to get your website on the first page of Google. Again, you can book now by clicking on the links in the chat. Please keep a lookout for further correspondence and all the social media posts from the OnlineX team about these new online gatherings, OnlineX gatherings happening in the coming weeks. Thanks again for your attendance. Good luck with your LinkedIn strategy. Thanks again, Michael, and goodbye.